Hello, everyone. It's great to be here and to talk to you about one of our major global projects from the OAO, 100 Hours for Astronomy. I'm Naomi Asabre Frimpong, and I'm really bummed that I can't be there with you, but I'm happy that we've had a wonderful time online. And talking about the 100 Hours for Astronomy, it's one of our global projects at the OAO, and we see it as a way of connecting the world under one sky because we all live under one sky. And so we at the OAO have a motto, or our aim is to make astronomy accessible everywhere, for everyone everywhere. And so we want to people to know why astronomy outreach matters, because we are all either astronomers, science communicators, practitioners, teachers, or enthusiasts who really are putting all our efforts and our energies into making people understand astronomy or have a passion for astronomy or introducing people to the astronomy career or knowledge. And so we at the OIL really want to share that astronomy outreach is more than education. It is an infrastructure for global scientific culture, and it builds scientific literacy. We want to use it to improve and inspire future scientists. We want to use it to promote inclusion and equity among everyone. We also use astronomy outreach to strengthen international collaborations and networking and working together towards a common goal. And more importantly, to connect astronomy with society, because there's always a disconnect between the general public and the scientists and what the scientists are doing, and the disconnect in how they see the importance of science in their daily life. So these are some of the reasons why astronomy outreach is so important. And we currently at the Office for Astronomy Outreach have two major frameworks for our activities. I think Kelly mentioned it on the first day that we have the public engagement section of our activities, and we have the professionalization of astronomy communication. And these two branches are very important. We are currently at this conference in one of these branches, which is the community communicating astronomy with the public. We have the CAP conference that we are currently at. We also have the CAP journal, where we publish research on science communication, case studies, applications of science communication in astronomy, and all things professionalization of astronomy communication. We also have the CAP community of practice, where we network with practitioners, researchers, astronomers, to understand how we can do science communication, astronomy science communication better. Then we have the public engagement activity branch of the OIL, where our global activity, the 100 Hours of Astronomy, falls under. And all these branches together makes the OIO a global coordination hub, whose core functions is to coordinate global outreach strategy, to support our national outreach coordinators, our NOCs, who are amazing, to deliver international campaigns to help regulate it and make sure that it's a success, to develop educational resources, training resources for our NOCs and for anyone who is interested and passionate about astronomy communication, and last but not least, to build professional partnerships worldwide. And so the OIL is the connection between making local outreach efforts into a unified global ecosystem, bringing your local activities and connecting you to the global community, and making your efforts known to everyone, and help people to know what's happening in your community, and even replicating it in their community also. Now we do this with our amazing national outreach coordinators, a global network with a local reach. We have over Our NOCs are found in over 120 countries with over 300 people as part of these NOC teams. And the NOC teams are made up of amateur and professional astronomers, astronomy enthusiasts, professional communicators, and educators. And we are currently trying to expand our reach by increasing the number of NOCs per country, because countries are not small. Okay, countries are big, there are different regions, and even in countries there are different communities, ethnicities, and so we see the need to have NOCs representing all these different communities within a country. So we are looking forward to expanding our NOC teams in different countries. So if you are here and you're a NOC, we encourage you to expand your team, bring in co-NOCs, bring in assistant NOCs, bring in NOC team members to help you make your work as accessible to everyone in your community as possible. Our NOCs are also a network that is for local leadership. We want to promote local leadership. We want to promote cultural and linguistic adaptations, making sure that the resources are adapted by you for your community, for your region. And it's a community-based engagement. Everything that we are producing or giving out to our NOCs, we expect them to use these facilities and these resources and adapt them to their local needs. So we have some global themes at the OAO that we work on all throughout the year. We have the women and girls in astronomy. Last year we had a wonderful session with women in solar physics, and this year we are doing the women in astrobiology. We have inclusion, astronomy communication, and we have dark and quiet skies campaigns. But however, one of our major global projects is the 100 hours that I've been mentioning. And this year we had a wonderful time. We collaborated with IPS in celebrating the 100 years of the planetarium. So the 100 hours, in summary, is a global project with that is a 100 hours marathon of astronomy activities that is supported worldwide. And since 2024, we collaborated with IPS to celebrate the 100 hours of the planetarium, and we ended it last year in 2025. And it was an opportunity for the global community to participate in promoting the planetarium. And the goal was to engage people and communities around the world with astronomy, promote the importance of the planetarium and the community events that support their work, and activate local institutions and leaders that work with astronomy outreach to bring people together and promote astronomy and the planetarium in their communities for the full duration of the 100 hours. And our local supporter and partner was the Akashi Municipal Planetarium. And we had a really fun time at the Akashi Planetarium, and our events, the main events, was hosted by the Akashi Planetarium. And this is our dream team for our major events. We have the Akashi Planetarium. We have Dr. Blackstar, who is the villain of Akashi Planetarium. We have the superheroes from the planetarium who saved the planetarium from the evil Dr. Blackstar. We have the OIL team and the team at Akashi Planetarium who were amazing in helping us do one of the biggest events, most ambitious ones that we had so far since I joined the OIL. So kudos to our dream team. And now I'll move on to what the 100 hours entailed. So we partnered with the IPS, and the core component of this global project was to create a node network. We set up a call for participants to form a local node where they will help organize events in their community during the 100 hours to promote astronomy and the planetarium. So we had a global community events that were organized globally, worldwide, in different countries. We also had international participations from our NOCs and people who were interested, who connected through us, through our nodes or through the planetariums, to feature in our YouTube live and to promote their country and their activities. So we had three main events. We had the global communities having events all over the world. We had international participations, and we had a YouTube live. And if you currently go to our YouTube, you will find our 24-hour hours of the planetarium still live on YouTube. So please use the QR code to go there. We still have the lives up there. It was an amazing time for our team. Tiring, but amazing. We also had the Big Astronomy and Big Aspirations live event that on the 2nd of October. And this was hosted by the IPS president, Dr. Shannon Small, who presented the planetarium show Big Astronomy live on YouTube with us. And we also had the presence of Addis Herald, who is from the Rubin Observatory, who gave us her perspectives on the next generation of ground-based astronomy currently being developed and what the Rubin telescope is currently producing, the amazing things that they are doing at the Rubin telescope. Now to our 24-hour live, we featured, it was a continuous 24-hour live stream, and we featured multilingual programmings. We featured global presenters. We had real-time participation, and we had interactive chats and polls going on, keeping people interested with answering questions, doing polls, having quizzes. It was a really, really fun event. And these are some of the overview of what we were able to achieve during that event. We had over 39 countries involved in the 24-hour live. We had 93 specific presentations, country-specific presentations. So some countries presented more than once. We had 42 live presentations and 49 recorded videos, because some people couldn't join us live. But it was still a very, very fun event. So when you see the countries that participated, we had Japan being the most, the country participated the most because they were the hosts, and they were the people that gave the most to this event. And it was amazing to see the number of planetariums in Japan and what they were doing. They were doing really amazing things. We had lots of countries participating either by video or by live, and it was really interesting and heartwarming to see how everyone contributed so much to making the event a success. And during the event, we had multiple activities. We had even a choral session, a choir singing, astronomy themed, the space themed music. We had a feature with space fishes. We had shows from Hawaii observatories. We had presentations about asteroid and meteorites. It was really an interesting period and event. So please go to our YouTube live and go and watch it. You really have fun learning so many things that were talked about. We even had a session on Pluto and why it was reclassified. So please join us and watch our YouTube live on the 100 Hours of Astronomy. Now, we did make some impact digitally. We had a lot of digital engagement, and I want to talk a bit about what the numbers that we got from our digital participation. We had over 60 average concurrent viewers, which means that averagely, that was a peak. Averagely, we had 6 people watching at any given time. But at the peak number, 60, but averagely we had around 39 people watching. Average views per stream, we had over 1,000 people watching the stream. We had people watched more than 200 hours, and we had over 600 people, unique viewers. That means 600 people, different people watched our stream at any given time. Now, we had the streams divided into six sections, and over the six sections, we had an average of 16 new subscribers at every 4-hour interval. And of course, we had over 20 countries being involved. So that was a really important metric for us to see, because we saw how a very positive metric for us to see, because we saw the impact that the live had on our network. Overall, our global footprint was also very, very positive. We had 53% views from Japan, and we have 25% from Americas, 20 a combination of Europe and Africa, and Asia outside of Japan was around 8%. So overall, we had around more than 9,000 impressions. I mean, people saw the adverts on their YouTube or on their Instagram or on all of their socials. We had I can't see very well. Averagely, women and male gender was relatively equal views. We had more female viewers than males, and that was quite interesting to see. So when we talk about reach and impact, what does it mean? It means that we had a high global reach. Over 20 countries participated, with Japan acting as the geographic anchor of the event, and America strengthening while the time moved, because it was a 24-hour live. Some continents fell within the later parts of the views of the stream. So we saw countries dipping in and out according to their time zones. We had a very high quality of engagement, and the growth was also very, very impressive. Now I'll come to how we evaluated the impact of our 24-hour live. Now we use the AEIOU evaluation framework, and I want to talk a little bit about it. It is a framework for used to measure how an outreach or education or science communication activity affects the audience. And A is affect. So it's how did the activity make people feel. Engagement is how did the activity make people, how actively did people engage or participate in your activities that you planned. Interest in the activity, increase their interest in the topic you were trying to share. Did it change their opinions or shape their views? Did they sorry about that. Did it change their opinions? How did they feel about what you were trying to say? Did they want to do better or learn more? Understanding, you is understanding. Did they learn something new from what you planned? And so this is how we evaluated the impact of the 24-hour live, using polls, using questions, and using quizzes and live chatting during the live stream. And we found out that we had a very high impact. Everything was above 80%. It was rated out of 5. So we had the people were really affected. They enjoyed it. They were really engaged, and they understood what we're talking about. And it helped them to change their opinion. Some of them wanted to visit the planetariums more. Some wanted to be involved in astronomy. Some were planning on buying telescopes. So we were really happy with the impact of the 24-hour lives. Opinions and intentions changed slightly. It was slightly lower, but still it was on the higher side of the impact matrix. So what drove this high engagement is that we had a lot of polls, we had quizzes, we had questions like how do you say the moon in your country. People were bringing calling the moon, all right, sending us how they call the moon in their local dialects. We had Q&A and guided scientific explanation moments, the live tours from people who were online from their planetariums were really interesting, and the global handoffs from different time zones helped people to keep involved. And there were a lot of young people who were actively online, being maybe doing activities to show what they are doing in their community. So this is what triggered the high engagement. We actually had a session where we asked for jokes from people, and we had a very interesting joke that I find very funny. It said, "How does the planet hold up its trousers?" No, it says, "How does Jupiter hold up its trousers?" And the answer is using an asteroid belt. And it was one of the funniest jokes I've had. I don't know whether you will laugh. I'm not very funny, but I hope it's funny to you that Jupiter holds up its trousers using the asteroid belt. And it was some of these things that kept people engaged during the 24-hour live. So we had very good feedback. We asked people to tell us how they enjoyed it, and there were multiple comments from people. Um, Somebody wrote that there are countless planetariums around the world, each filled with people who share an interest in space. The starry sky is our common asset and tool of communication. The live stream is not was not only well received, it also made viewers feel that they belonged, and people enjoy listening to diverse and inclusive presentations. I think people also liked hearing people speak in their own language, because I told you it was a multilingual program. And so we allowed people to speak in their dialects. And so people were happy to hear um, astronomy being spoken in their language and things happening in their country in their language. And that was really impactful. Now, about community impact beyond metrics. I told you we had a global participation where we had a call for participation globally, and we had 36 community nodes in 51 countries. And these nodes registered over 300 events with thousands of participants. Now, these are people who registered on our website. But however, some still didn't. So we believe that there are many activities that happened that we were not made aware of. We don't know happened. But for those that were registered on our website, we had over 300 activities registered on our website. The event organizers, we had a survey for the events organizers, and out of the 100 plus organizers or 300 events, only 38 responded, but it was still good, and they responded from 21 countries. And from their responses of the survey, we realized that directly the event impacted over 20,000 people, and indirectly through media, TV, social media, the impact reached over 6 million people. 90% of the count of the participants showed an increase in interest for astronomy, and 97 of them wanted to be part of future OAO events, and 95% rated the experience as 4.5 out of 5, which is like a really high rating. So this shows that our organizers were happy with the impact they also made, and they wish to be involved again in a similar project or even any new project that OAO organizes in the future. Now, the organizers delivered many events to different people. So the highest audience segments were the general public. They had teens between the ages of 13 and 19 being the next highest demographic. They had university students, educators, children under 12 years, and policymakers being the lowest audience segment that they they delivered their events to. And some of the events that were promoted or held during the 100 hours were stargazing events, school activities, planetarium shows, online webinars and live streams, exhibitions and science fairs, and other formats. So people did what they could in their community with the resources that they had. With the resources that they had. Now we had voices, people talking about how the organizers, how they felt about the events that they held, and the participants wanted to attend more astronomy events. They wanted to visit a planetarium or a science center again. They wanted to join or even start an astronomy club. That shows the impact that the organizers had on their participants. Some wrote, "We got more girls and boys in these events. The public were eager to know more, and the audience had a positive reactions to the events that they held in their communities." Now, we also sent a survey to the nodes who were supposed to help organize events in their countries, and they also rated they had a very positive community impact. They saw partnerships strengthened among institutions in their countries. They want more future campaigns, and they want to stay connected not only to their new found partnerships, but also to the oil. They rated impact as 90%, partnership at 90%. They want to stay connected, and they look forward to future events. Now, we asked them to share their sentiments, and some were going through a tough time. And I read, only a few months after a difficult period for our country, we still held 27 astronomy events across Iran, and a positive sign of the resilience, unity, and passion for the night sky. That's from Iran. Um, our node actually wrote its first astronomy research paper. It's now published on Zenodo. The most memorable moments we saw was seeing students using telescopes for the first time and sharing their excitement and with their families during the night observations. Someone wrote, "I got to meet more people from our circle of contacts and made new, hopefully lasting connections." One of the most memorable highlights was that for the first time, many astronomical teams joined together in the celebration. So this shows that it's reinforcing the quantitative picture that the nodes experience high community impact, um, personal growth, and stronger partnerships. So the nodes did not just participate, okay, they created a visible local impact. They built partnerships, and they signaled strong readiness to work with the oil again. And the next opportunity is to convert this goodwill that we've created during last year's 100 hours into an even more supported, more visible, and more connected global campaign. The data shows that astronomy outreach is inclusive. It can be inclusive, it can be interactive, and it can be globally representative. It does more than just attract attention, but it helps to bring to build belonging in a community. It helps to build curiosity in young people and to motivate them to act and to change their perspective about science, about astronomy, about the world in general. So, in conclusion, no, like showing how the timeline of the campaign, we had a global program that had 51 countries, 93 country tagged presentations, live plus video relay mode. We have audience, over 2,000 audience reached, over 3 million indirect reaches, and an average of more than 1,000 people watching our live streams. We had a positive impact, positive evaluation. We had a sense of belonging and learning in our participants, and we had many people wishing to be involved in such a global activity again. So, in conclusion, the 100 hours is 100 hours of astronomy is uh, a campaign that's reached, the people globally across presenters, across languages, across communities, our nodes, our organizers. They all reported high impact, high IEIOU evaluation impact. People felt belonged, people felt affected, people increased their interest, and they wished to belong in the astronomy communities. And the campaign was more than a broadcast. It was more like a globally shared event that people felt a connection to, and they want to be more connected and to have a sense of belonging and want to be part of it in the future. Now, that was last year. What are we planning for next year? Next year, we are having, no, I mean this year. This year, in October, we are having 100 hours of astronomy solar system. So stay tuned to your emails, to our newsletter, to social media to hear more about what we are planning. The theme is the solar system. So please um, respond to our calls when we put out the call for participation, share with your community, help us grow our networks, and thank you for listening. I'm not sure I can answer this question. That's a very, very big question. I can't count the number of planetariums, but there are a lot. There are a lot of planetariums. So we probably have to find out together.
Yes, we have.
Has emerging field, do you consider in the questionnaire of evaluation of the activity some field for distinguish such events related to cultural astronomy?
In our evaluation, we did not consider cultural astronomy, the relevance to cultural astronomy, but we did ask people to put down their sentiments. They were allowed to write something to us about it if they wanted to, but I think it's something we want to include next time if you are doing evaluation. Thank you for bringing it up. We'll keep it in mind for our next evaluation. It's a good thing to keep track of. Thank you very much. Oh, I have an answer here for the first question. The answer is from Kelly. There is over 2,100 observatories and over 4,000 fixed and mobile planetariums to the first question. So please, thank you, Kelly.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Duduzile Kubheka. So yeah, you did a good job. Thank you. As mentioned, I'm based in South Africa at the South African Astronomical Observatory. Sorry, and then the project I'm about to present about is one we ran in during the GA, the last GA that was held in Cape Town, South Africa. And the legacy for that project is being carried over by the African Astronomical Society. So I am presenting right now as former co-chair for the committee. And so I just a little background. I think I don't know if you were there at the GA or you participated, but I'm guessing you know about the GA that we had. So because it was the first time it was held in Africa as a whole, the team and I mean the African Astronomical Society as a whole was very intentional in ensuring that this becomes an African project. It's an African event. So even the outputs or impact we wanted to have, we needed it to positively impact the African people on the continent. That included making sure more people, more Africans attend the conference. But beyond that, we saw this as an opportunity where we are hosting world-class astronomers for the very first time in Africa, where all of them are gathered in Cape Town. And we thought, let's make sure we use this opportunity well and let them reach out to communities, right? So that was the plan. And as we then started the engagements during the GA, we encountered even more challenges, and it's part of the reason it's because of the challenges we encountered that we then thought this is a great project to implement beyond the GA. So the goal was to extend the legacy of the GA, ensuring we broaden access to astronomy and STEM education. We did this by distributing the 100, it's actually 101 screens to selected schools and science centers. We were trying to empower learners with digital learning schools. We also provided hands-on outreach and mentorship through the Legacy Ambassador Initiative. And we had volunteers who then were interacting with other science centers as well and went out to these communities for public engagement activities. And we're also trying to ensure sustainable engagement beyond the visits, where we can then connect with these learners and these schools through the screens that were distributed. And when I started, I mentioned the challenges, right? So I think this is relevant in many of the developing nations, but it's very, very prevalent with us, where representation is a big issue. It still is. It still is largely a big issue where astronomy can only be found in certain communities and not others. And we are trying to dismantle that, where in a lot of these communities, because of lack of access, science isn't usually chosen as a viable career choice. Language is also another issue. Where in an example, in South Africa, we have 11 official languages, but the main language of communication is English. But in rural and township communities, you find that people still speak the vernacular languages. And so for proper engagement, impactful engagement, we need to speak each other's languages. Sustainability, we have a lot of once-off engagements and there's no repeat visits or to ensure continuity. Resources, I think almost everyone has an issue of insufficient resources. And the last one I wrote there in red is crime or structural barriers. It was up until the GA that we realized how serious of an issue this is and how we collectively need to somehow work together to also be actively involved in the communities we are in to solve those challenges, or at least engage with relevant stakeholders as we work together. And I'm saying this because at the GA we had over 600 people who signed up to assist us with public engagement in the communities. I'm going to speak mainly about Cape Town at the time when we were reaching out to the communities. And then just a few days before the conference started and the activities had to start, when we reached out to more people, we find people also who had volunteered expressed concerns about the danger in the city, right? Which is reasonable, it's fair. I mean, I live there myself and I know certain areas have a reputation of being very dangerous. And then others expressly asked that they not be sent to townships they only wanted to go to city-based schools. And so that posed a serious issue because, one, it is a valid concern that crime is an issue, right? It's valid. I mean, I too wouldn't want to go to dangerous communities. But that also meant schools that are in those areas couldn't be reached because now people do not want to go there. And we also do not want to risk people's lives, especially international visitors. It's better if it's local people because at least we are familiar with the environment. And that's why then the idea of distributing the screens became so important, because then we knew that we could still have continued engagements with these schools even if people don't really go step in those communities. And so the screens, and then you'd see, I think if you were, I also presented this slide at the previous CAP conference on the cascade outreach model. And this is how, this was our approach as well, where we get local people from the different communities to serve as ambassadors for those communities, where the university level student goes to this community where they are from, or rather it's similar to the community that they come from, and they speak the language of that particular community and can comfortably maybe walk into that community without other fears of maybe someone who's not very familiar with that community, and they become ambassadors for that particular community. So this was based on that model as well. But how we did it differently this time is we also worked with science centers, which is something we did not do when we first did the cascade outreach model. This time we worked with science centers, and the reason for science centers is because they are embedded in the various communities across the country. And so we needed to have a local institution or structure that would still be able to engage with the schools more on an in-person basis when we are not there, and those who we can continuously offer support to. But this also meant that because science centers are so actively involved in science engagement, we also needed them to network and engage with the students, who are mainly STEM students and most of them being astronomy students. So they could also share and exchange knowledge and build that connection with each other for more continued engagements in the future. And so you'd remember the screens. I did not give a background of the screens I'm talking about. Again, at the GA, we had over 100 screens that were used during the poster sessions. This allowed people to present and also have their poster presentations streamed online. And these are the screens we used. And the reason we bought these screens is when we're organizing the conference, we realized a lot of things are so expensive, right? And part of the expenses was, if we were to hire out the screens, it was more expensive than buying the screens. And so we thought, let us buy the screens so that even beyond the conference, we could do something meaningful with them. So thank you to all who participated last time. Your contributions helped us get to this point. And then with these screens, we are trying to enhance classroom learning through the visual and interactive educational content. We also wanted to make sure we expose the learners because of the excitement from the GA, where we saw them so excited with meeting, just meeting someone from a different country was such a big deal for them. And we thought, you know what, when we've distributed these 100 screens, what we want to do is make sure we connect them to world-class scientists, not just astronomers, but broader scientists, so that they can connect online and engage with different learners from different parts of the country at the same time. And that was the whole purpose of the program. So with the legacy ambassadors, these are the ambassadors we used who worked with us in the implementation of the program. These are university level students. Others are early career researchers who are now, at teaching level. So we worked with them through some training of science communication, leadership, community engagement, and professional development. What helped the most also with the training was the science centers, the partnership with the science centers, who also helped have some form of job shadowing, where when the students got there, they would spend some time with the science center and learn how the science center works in the community, the types of activities they do and how they engage. And then there would be that exchange of knowledge. And then the ambassadors, together with the science centers, then worked together in leading the astronomy and STEM outreach in the different communities that we're in. and continue to offer some mentorship to the students. And these are just some of the images from the different ambassadors and engagements we had across the country. And then the main groups of participants and beneficiaries that we had were these science centers, science facilities like the research centers that we have in the country, like the South African Astronomical Observatory, the Radio Astronomical Observatory, and many other facilities. We had universities as well who partnered with us, either through giving us more of their students to assist, or they themselves assisting with some resources to reach out to communities where they are embedded. We had the ambassadors themselves and schools. With the schools, we made sure we have a main contact teacher who we work with, so that we can continuously have engagements with the school beyond the once-off engagements. And then the engagements and distribution details, we had 101 screens distributed. This is across the different schools and science centers across the country. The priority was the lower quintile schools. You'd remember when I first started that there were certain challenges where we couldn't go to certain communities because a lot of people had fears of going into those. And in those communities, you'd find the most impoverished people and communities there. And lower quintile schools in South Africa are those schools that don't pay fees, or they pay very small amount of fees because the community there cannot really afford. And so there's a lot more government subsidies. And so those were the main schools that we're trying to focus on to benefit from this program, as opposed to the others who maybe have more access to these centers from time to time. We had also 16 science centers involved. 9 of those centers also received the screens. And what I liked about this is the engagements continue even without our intervention, where the science centers and the ambassadors can, or from time to time, organize their own sessions using the screens, connecting with the schools, and even with others that were not really part of the beneficiaries from the program. And you'd see here the distribution is across the entire country where the screens will have been distributed. And the long-term sustainability and engagement plan is beyond this installation. We want to establish that network of schools that we have now, and science centers and professionals to all work together in facilitating virtual STEM sessions, where we continue to connect with all the schools and we have more engagements and invite more scientists to join us in these engagements. We also plan on ensuring the regular use of this technology, even without our intervention. We'll be using these for teacher training opportunities where this could be led by another science facility. And that's the reason we worked with other science facilities who have their own programs and can use this platform to run more of those trainings. And also plan to provide these learners with more opportunities to visit science facilities and observatories. Next step now is to also have some sort of annual workshop with this network that we have, so that we can continually keep in check with how we are progressing and how we can continue to improve. Lessons learned from the program is the one size fits all approach does not work, can't work, and we always need to be flexible. Co-creation is very important in meaningful outcomes. This means working with as many diverse stakeholders as possible, even beyond the science space. If it means working with local community leaders to be able to get access to those communities, then that's what we need to do. Community is everything. Science centers, ambassadors, schools, teachers, all of them play a role. Representation matters, more so in underdeveloped nations, where we are trying to make sure that they see science as a viable option even for them, by seeing people who look like them communicate the science. There's value in giving back and serving, and that should be instilled early in careers. And that's why we're working with young astronomers and young students, so that they understand this, and as they grow and advance in their careers, they'd always understand the importance of this and maybe even motivate for it even more. None of this is convenient. It was probably it was difficult and at times extremely emotional, going through the challenges where we can't reach certain communities, but that has worked quite well for us. And so, yeah, I think if you're wondering what the schools in the GA, the schools that we couldn't go to, we did arrange for them to come to the venue where we had engagements, learner engagements, about 2 days at that time. So yes, thank you so much for your time. I'm done now.
Thank you very much for your talk. So we don't have any questions online just yet. So if there are any questions in person, please feel free.
Question in person. So let me.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you very much for the talk. Very interesting. So I have actually two questions. One is if the activities planned with the screens are included in the curriculum of students, like the study plan they already have, or it's always for like additional activities related to astronomy, and how is connectivity in the location where these TVs were set?
Well, thank you for your questions. I wouldn't say for the first question, it's not formally included in the program, but what we try to do is communicate with the schools or the teachers ahead of time so that we can schedule it properly in the plan. But we are working closely with the education department to make sure we try and formalize this for in the future. And then the last question is very important again, also because I mentioned it's in the lower quintile schools, which is rather in the impoverished communities. So connection is a challenge from time to time, where at times the teachers would need to make means and have their own form of Wi-Fi or connection to make sure the school can get access to internet. So it's always a challenge. So other times schools drop off because of the internet issues, but other times the teachers make a plan, or the ambassadors or the science centers. Thank you.
We have another question on site.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. I want to ask you if you can explain with more detail this cascade model of outreach.
Okay. So I think I can also share a link in the previous CAP. I did a presentation mainly on the cascade outreach, and there was a paper on a report, a case study report on that. I can also share that link. But the basic model is we're trying to have a cascading effect where you have university level students who are working on training and serving as mentors for high school level learners. And the plan is to also make sure that these university level students also get mentorship from maybe early career researchers, or in this case, they worked with science centers and other people who were training them, so that there's what is a domino effect of some sort. And so that's how we did it, where the university level students in this case were trained on science communication by the science centers, and then they went out to the schools and local communities where they were engaging with high school learners. This is ensuring relatable role models, because if sending someone way older is not as relatable as sending someone younger who's maybe just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. And so that provides that relatability. And also in this case, we are trying to make sure we looked at people from the local community. So we would only send you to a community that you are from, or a community that speaks the language that you do, so that you'll be able to also speak the local language for more relatability. So that cascade model is mainly based on that relatable role model, and also ensuring science communication and training. That I'll share that link, and you can get more details on what we've done previously on the cascade outreach model.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your in-person questions. We have one question online, and then we will move on to our next speaker. Our question online is, how many disadvantaged communities benefited in South Africa from your program?
Well, we were able to reach out to nine provinces, But in the 9 provinces, we had how many? It's different communities because it's different cities or different towns. So I'd say safely over about 50 or so. But I'd share more details on the number of communities. But we're very intentional in trying to ensure we reach out to different districts or municipalities and not center them around one area. And most of these were remote communities and township communities.
Thank you so much. Let's give our speaker one more round of applause. We do have a really lovely comment in the chat as well that mentioned that they participated in the IUGA and being with your group was the #1 highlight of their experience. So thank you for all that you do. Our next speaker, thank you. Our next speaker is Azasiwe Mancwatela from South Africa, and they will be speaking on evaluating astronomy for development, early evidence from IU OAD flagship projects in developing countries.
Okay, apologies. There seem to be audio challenges on my end. So my name is Azasiwe Mancwatela. I work on monitoring and evaluation at the IAU Office of Astronomy for Development. I'm also a PhD researcher based at the South African Astronomical Union in South Africa. So today my talk will be on some of the early findings emerging on both my research and evaluation work that I conduct in the OAD funded project. So mainly on answering a very important question of how do we evaluate the ways in which astronomy initiatives contribute to meaningful development outcomes within communities. And also, my work attempts to move beyond success stories. Instead, we explore how astronomy-based interventions contribute to development, such as education, STEM engagement, community participation, social inclusion, economic opportunities, and sustainable local impact. So before discussing the evaluation itself, I want to briefly explain the context in which the work is situated. The OAD supports projects across different regions globally, particularly within developing countries and underserved communities, but it's not limited to developing countries. The central idea is that the astronomy is not only scientific discipline, but also a platform that can support education, capacity building, community engagement, innovation, inspiration, as well as international collaboration, also social development. So within the OED ecosystem, there are various flagship programs that are funded, operating across different thematic areas. These projects differ quite significantly in their objective, scale, target, and as well implementation context. So, for example, some projects focus on school-based STEM education, some focus on teacher training, some focus on um, youth engagement, indigenous knowledge systems, as well as tourism, economic participation. So, because of this diversity, evaluating impact becomes particularly complex. Traditional evaluation approaches often focus mainly on the participation numbers of outreach outputs, but not exactly capture the broader multidimensional outcomes that emerge from astronomy engagement. So, one of the important things emerging from this work is understanding how astronomy activities can translate into broader um, development outcomes. So the pathway doesn't not stop simply at hosting stargazing event or astronomy workshop, but we can begin to see that activities often create opportunities for skills development, and those skills con- can contribute to wider social economic outcomes, such as communication, public speaking skills for the participant or beneficiaries, critical thinking, and problem-solving abilities. And in some projects, particularly astrotourism initiatives, participants also develop practical entrepreneurial and tourism-related skills such as guiding visitors, operating telescopes, storytelling, and organizing astronomy experiences. So over time, these skills can contribute to broader development outcomes such as increased employability, youth empowerment, as well as community participation, right to sustainable livelihood opportunities. So what becomes important in this research that I'm doing is not only asking whether people participated in astronomy activity, but also asking raw questions such as what skills were developed, how are those skills being used, and how do they contribute to long-term individual and community development. That is really where astronomy for development perspective becomes valuable because it allows us to think about astronomy not as only science outreach, but also a platform for building capacity and sustainable development. So when I first started working on evaluating astronomy for development project, much of the data that was collected focused mainly on counting outputs. So that would be things like the number of participants, the number of workshops conducted, or number of trainings that were delivered. And while these indicators are important for monitoring project activity, I began to realize that they don't necessarily tell us whether meaningful change is actually happening within communities. So this became one of the central motivations behind my research, um, to sort of translate these outputs to outcomes. So I wanted to look at what improved what increased scientific confidence, or whether these projects that support local livelihoods or they created sustainable community benefits. And these are difficult questions to answer. So there's often a gap between the project activity and the demonstrated social impact. So that way my research try to investigate and bridge that gap. So the goal is not only to better output, but to better understand the process of change, skills development pathways, product developmental contribution over time as well. So to do this evaluation, I had to follow a framework or put up a framework. This conceptual framework is what guides my work in research. The framework tries to position astronomy interventions within a broader development ecosystem. The framework is built with 5 dimensions: its educational impact, social impact, skills development impact, economic impact, and institutional sustainability. The framework itself is intentionally multidimensional because the projects are so unique and different in what they do and in what they try to address in these communities. So now that the framework was in place, I then had to go a step further by incorporating a theory of change to approach the evaluation. So the theory of change explain how project activities are expected to lead to desired outcomes and broader developmental impact over time. So rather than only asking what happened, the theory of change asks why did it happen, what challenge or problem was the project trying to address, how did it happen, meaning we are looking at resources and what input went into the project and output that were involved in creating this change, and also what change in terms of outcomes, impact, and the broader development contribution of the project. For the OAD project, the theory of change generally follows inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and then achieve the developmental impact that is wanted. So, for example, if a project is doing or delivering a teacher training program, the immediate output will include new educational resources. Then the shorter term outcomes would be improved teaching practices. And then over time, these outcomes may contribute to broader development impacts such as educational advancement. So all in all, the evaluation framework attempts to account for the context and complexity rather than assuming a straightforward cause and effect relationship between astronomy activities and development outcomes. So now we move on to Flagship project case studies. I've selected 3 projects that explore different themes. The first one, Astrotype, it looks more on community-driven and inclusivity. Tourism looks at the link between astronomy, tourism, and local livelihoods. Then we have Astrolab, which is much more an education and STEM-focused project. Astrotribe is an initiative that was led by Astronera in India. It is committed to nurturing curiosity, disseminating astronomical knowledge, and empowering underprivileged students. The project emphasizes community participation, youth engagement, representation, science accessibility, skills development through science and communication. And we have astrotourism. This one is particularly interesting because it connects astronomy with local economic ecosystem, environmental education, and community-based tourism. This project was implemented in southern Colombia. It leveraged the region's clear skies, low light pollution, and natural landscapes. So the idea behind this project is that dark skies and astronomy experiences can create opportunities for tourism activity, local entrepreneurship, employment, and livelihood development. And then we move on to Astrolab. Astrolab represents an educational dimension of astronomy development. It is an inquiry-based astronomy training initiative designed to provide undergraduate students with hands-on experience in astronomy through astronomical observation using remote telescopes. The project was implemented within several African universities since 2014. It supports institutions that may have limited astronomy infrastructure or curriculum development opportunities. What was emphasized in this project was practical STEM learning, hands-on astronomy, research-based learning, institutional capacity building, and student participation. So the methodology I use, I adopted three key forms of investigation, which is quantitative, qualitative, as well as triangulation. I therefore incorporate both components in order to capture not only measurable outcomes, but also the lived experiences and contextual realities of participants and within the communities that they are in. So the quantitative method will include baseline service and endline service, as well as the final report. Within the qualitative method, there are open-ended responses within the baseline and endline service that we use. I think at the end, I'll do a thematic analysis on those. And then triangulation will be just um, contextualizing the findings from the quantitative and the qualitative. And then there's innovations that have come with this new framework and form of evaluation. One major is the development of multidimensional impact that is specifically designed for astronomy for development. So instead of focusing narrowly on traditional outreach matrices, um, which is what many existing science communication evaluations tend to do. So this framework takes much broader approach. It integrates four main dimensions: social indicators, educational indicators, economic indicators, and sustainability indicators. Um, the next innovation is using machine learning. So there are some softwares that I use from my economic background to evaluate and process the data. And then early findings. And before I go into the results, I just want to start with I use traditional models for measuring efficiency in the development projects. And since astronomy for development project don't quite fit nicely in these models, um, the findings are still a bit at the early stages. I'm still working on identifying and refining the most appropriate measurement tools for this kind of context. I looked at funding trends and institutional embedding trends within the project, as well as um, efficiency at the end. So if you look at the funding trends using a log transform values, the main point is that funding does not follow a smooth upward or a downward trend. Instead, it fluctuates over time. So we have an inconsistent rather than steady increasing trend in funding. And then in institutional embedding, the main finding is that projects differ quite a lot in how embedding they are in the community. Some periods show stronger partnerships and some institutional support, but seemingly they follow a continuous trend over time. And then we look at distribution and efficiency. we do see a recovery of a period to another. For example, in 2014 to 2015, we see improvement, stronger improvement in 2017, and from 2019 to 2020, and again in 2021 to 2022, we still see small gains. So overall, the key message is that there's no smooth upward trend. Efficiency for the project moves in cycles, and improvements are really sustained over time. And the contributions that came with the evaluation is a transferable evaluation framework for astronomy for development. Second is a methodological contribution of mixed method and multidimensional evaluation approaches, as well as a practical contribution, especially for the partner project. Things can be directly supported by better project design, stronger monitoring systems, and improved sustainability. And then moving on to challenges that I faced with evaluating these projects would be long-term outcomes take time to observe, and there are also attribution challenges. There's also a limited baseline in some of the projects. They had to go back and dig in all the things that they had. And then the project themselves are quite diverse in context. And there's also a small sample size that I'm working with in terms of the pilot project that we started with in 2024. In conclusion, what I've learned from it, this project is that astronomy is not inspiration alone. It can also contribute to skills development, inclusive growth, environmental stewardship, sustainable development. And this research argues that astronomy outreach can be evaluated rigorously, and that it has potential to contribute meaningfully to development outcomes and diverse communities. Thank you very much for your attention. The research is still ongoing, and I look forward to the evaluation and expanding the evidence around astronomy for development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We have one question online, and then we can go to in person. And the question online is, what is AstroTribe and how is equity an outcome? And are you on the same view as the previous presentation as justice being an outcome as well?
Sorry, can you repeat? I think that the first part, there's a lag on sound on my end.
Sure, I will put the question in our backstage chat so you can see it there. It's kind of a long
Okay, thank
question.
Okay. So the question says, what is AstroTribe? So AstroTribe is a project that was conducted by Astroneer, India, on using astrotourism as a tool for economic empowerment for youth in 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 a community in India. So what the project was doing was training tour guides and giving them a skill, and for them to translate the skill into an entrepreneurial opportunity so that they can commercialize it in terms of earning income from that. So that was a project done by Astronera in India. And the last part says, is equity and in outcome, and are you on the same? Okay. So for my evaluation, framework, what I do is that I evaluate the project as what it's seeking to address within its community. So if a project is seeking to address maybe gender inequality, how females and males access education within that region, so equity and inclusion become an indicator or outcome of that project in how they incorporate more females compared to males, depending on what they are trying to address. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any questions in person?
We have questions. There is one.
Thank you for your excellent and very clear presentation. A question about triangulation. You mentioned triangulation of method between your quantitative and qualitative part. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Did you use a specific technique within triangulation? Because there's lots of options within there. So anything more about how you did that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. So for triangulation, initially what I do is that I rely mostly on the final report of the project for my first investigative point, which was efficiency, looking at how efficiency is achieved by the project. But that is done through looking at the inputs that come into the project and then the outputs right to the outcomes of the project. So I then proceeded to constructing surveys. So a survey might have all the quantitative aspects that we want to measure or outcomes that we want to measure for the project. So within that survey, there are also open-ended questions. So in those open-ended questions, they give us much more context where responses can explain why participants felt inspired or engaged. So triangulation in this instance would be trying if there was a gap in what the quantitative measures we're giving us, then we go back into what the lived experiences of the participants there, or the challenges that the beneficiaries or whatever the beneficiaries noted in those open-ended questions. We then go back and just cover and fill that gap with what the experiences were for the participants.
Thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you again to all of our speakers online. I believe Kelly has an announcement for all of us.